I extend a special welcome to Shri P.V. Bhatt sir, Deputy Director General and State Informatics Officer of Karnataka, and the project head of both these systems. Good morning, sir. I also welcome Chief Technology Officer and other officers of GSTN who have joined us today from GSTN. Good morning to you, sir, as well. I'm pleased to have my colleagues here with me, Mr. Suresh Meti, Senior Director at NIC, and Ms. Rebi, Joint Director. So without further delay, I now request Shri P.V. Bhatt sir to kindly begin the session. So over to you, sir.
Thank you, Sunita. Good morning to all of the taxpayer. I would like to congratulate all of you for using the system very effectively and taking care further on that. As of you know, for last six and a half year, we are running the e-Waybill system, which is running very smoothly without any challenges or any issues. In between, there may be for half an hour or so, it could have been there once in a 6 months, but otherwise it is running very smoothly. And whatever the feedback we got a very good feedback from all the taxpayer. As you know already, we have crossed 515 crore e-Waybill generation from the portal. And also around 3 years back, we have started the e-Invoice system. That e-Invoice system has made a big impact in the whole activities of the taxpayer for various activity and ITC purpose. As of now, we have generated 677 crore e-Waybill e-invoices from the portal, and more than 11 lakh taxpayers are generating the B2B, B2A export invoices on this portal regularly without any challenges. It is running smoothly. And also, we have started the second system. As you know, GSTN has taken the initiative to add some more IRPs for the e-invoice generation. There are around totally now 6 portals are there. Out of that, 2 we are running. Other 4 private partners also are there. They are also running smoothly this portal. And government has given a flexibility for all the taxpayer to go to any portal and generate the IRN and take it further. And all these portals are running smoothly. Taking further, as we are having 2 portals, taking further on that, we have built the active model for these 2 portals. And also we have provided interoperable activities. In case of any challenge in one of the portal, people can directly switch over to the other portal, because these 2 portals are running from 2 locations. One is from Delhi, other is from Hyderabad. Both are running very smoothly, and we have given a flexibility. In case of any challenge you are facing, or when you are going to the main site, you can go to the other site, use the same credentials, same token, and start generating the IRNs. And similarly, if you want to update on the previous portal, we have given some mechanism which we are going to explain in detail, so that the technical people and the officers can understand how it is working. So you can get it done from your service provider. Basically, a technical service provider who is providing you the software, who has provided the ERP solution. You can tell them to use this portal, these facilities, and build that in case of any emergency. Because of various reasons, maybe our system is not working, or internet is not working, or some other issues are coming, you should have a facility to go to the other portal immediately, continue. Because we don't want you to suffer because of the portal is not running, your vehicles are held up, your invoice generations have stopped. That situation should not be there. So that's why we have gone ahead after taking a feedback from some of the taxpayer who has told us that if you seamlessly integrate and provide a facility between these 2 portals, easily we can run both the system, our system easily. We can go to the other portal and start generating. With that facility, we have also extended to the e-Waybill. We have provided e-Waybill second portal also from Hyderabad. We have made a provision to, again, interoperable facility we have provided, maybe with a limited functionality, but in the coming days, we will be expanding that and providing for all the functionalities, which most of the taxpayers have started using. It is there on the, basically we are now educating all the API users You are all the taxpayer API users who we are want to educate and integrate automatically. Whereas the people who are using a web or any other modes or offline mode, they can easily go just by changing the URL and start doing. But in case of API, what happens? You have to change your system. You have to change a little bit of logic to take care of both these facility and functionality. That is the reason we thought that we'll have one detailed session to all the taxpayers. And good number of taxpayers have joined now. Some people have already started using this system, integrated with the system, and they are generating the IRNs from the second portal. Automatically, they are switch over, they are doing. In fact, we have educated the GSPs also and ERPs also. So they have also started using this system, and we have provided a sandbox environment where you can go and text and play all kind of possibilities and understand how it is working. Then you can switch over to the main site and start doing it. Without going further into these aspects, I will leave it to my colleagues to take it in a detailed presentation and explain you. After completion of that, we'll take the question answer session so that we'll clear. Even GSTN team is there, CTO is there, so they will also be able to explain or clarify any doubts are there on the e-Invoice portal side. Thank you. Over to Sunita.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for the quick highlights of the session. For any queries, your taxpayers may put the same in the chat box. Now I request Mr. Suresh Meti to begin the detailed session. Over to you, Suresh.
Thank you very much, Sunita. Good morning to all the participants. Welcome to this session. Hope the screen is visible. Hello, Sunita?
Yeah, it's visible.
Screen is visible, right? Okay,
Yes,
thank you.
yes.
So as the sir has given the introduction of this purpose of this particular session and why we have gone for this interoperability, we'll have a quick look at a presentation and subsequently we can have the questions. Most of the questions may be answered through this particular presentation. Still, if you have any additional questions, you can put in the chat box later. So we are talking about two systems, e-Invoice and e-Waybill, and we'll take up one after the other. So why we have taken this initiative? So as sir has mentioned, like we have been running e-Waybill since 2018 and e-Invoice since October 2020. We have been running it smoothly. However, any technical systems, there may be some disruptions happening due to certain situations beyond one's control. But managed to run the show without much interruptions. But we are aware that like these are very critical systems where some small disruption also affect a lot to the businesses, either generation of invoices or its generation of e-Waybill or movement of goods, etc. That's the reason we have already we have been running the second instance of e-Invoice, that is e-Invoice 2. But still it was running independently. So there were no interoperable features so far between e-Invoice 1 and e-Invoice 2. But we have introduced now, there is an interoperability between the two systems, that is e-Invoice 1 and e-Invoice 2. And there was no second instance of e-Waybill earlier. That's what we have introduced now. So these initiatives will take care of any such unexpected disruptions in the service so that the users, the taxpayers and logistics can switch to the other working instance and continue their critical business activities. So why we are having this interaction? Already all related information we have published through our portals, the e-Waybill portal and e-Invoice portal, and all the technical requirements we have already published through our e-Invoice API and e-Waybill API developer portals. But still we thought like above what we have already shared, we will better have an interaction with the stakeholders and clarify any doubts which they might be facing technically in integrating with these two interoperable systems. So let us see the first interoperable features that we have provided in the e-Invoice system. So both the portals, e-Invoice 1 and e-Invoice 2, one can use it either through the web or through the API. And this particular session is mainly focusing on the API. So the are available through the API in both the systems. So taxpayers and logistic operators can use the same login credentials to work on either of the portals. They don't have to separately create the user ID and password for these two systems. It's a common user ID and password. In case of API, apart from the user ID and password, even the token also is interoperable. So once you have taken a token in one instance, you can use the same token in the other instance as well. Then the taxpayers can use the other portal. They can switch over to the other portal in case there is any technical glitch in one. And there are some crisscross operations possible, which we will be detailing shortly, like cancelling of an IRN or getting the e-Waybill details or updation of Part B. Those kind of features like in e-Waybill or e-Invoice, they can be operated crisscross. Like you have generated the IRN in one instance and IRN can be cancelled at the other one, or print can be taken from the other instance. So this is what we are calling as the interoperable operations. So coming to specifically the API systems. So actually in all, we have 4 systems: e-Invoice 1, e-Invoice 2, e-Waybill 1 and e-Waybill 2. So you can generate a auth token from any one of these 4. So the auth API is available in any one of these, in all these 4 instances. So you can generate the token from anyone, and having generated the token from any one of these API systems, you can use them to connect to the APIs of any other API system. That is e-Waybill 1, e-Waybill 2 or e-Invoice 1 and e-Invoice 2. So you don't have to again and again generate the token separately for these 4 instances. There will be only one token that needs to be generated, which can be used across 4 API systems. At e-Invoice 1 portal, you can access services of e-Invoice 2 and vice versa. That is, the IRS that you have generated on e-Invoice 2 portal, they are available at e-Invoice 1 for cancellation and generation of e-Waybill. So irrespective of where you have generated the IRN, you can do cancellation or generation of e-Waybill at the other e-Invoice API system. Okay, but how do we operate this? What enables us to distinguish between the IRN that is generated at one or? So we have introduced one additional header parameter by name IRP. So if you have generated an IRN at e-Invoice 1 and you want to operate on it from e-Invoice 2, in that case, you have to specify where actually the IRN was generated in the IRP header parameter. For example, to access the services of e-Invoice 2, namely get IRN or cancel IRN or e-Waybill by IRN APIs from e-Invoice 1, the URL and endpoints are same as of e-Invoice 1, but you will be accessing the base URL of e-Invoice 2, but you will be specifying in the IRP as the value as NIC2, using which the system will come to know that the IRN was generated at NIC2 portal, and hence we will be fetching the IR, or we will be working on the IRN which is generated at the NIC2 portal. Similarly, if the IRN was generated at e-Invoice 1, and if you want to take a print of that in e-Invoice 2, then in the IRP header parameter, you have to pass the value as NIC1. The APIs that are available for crisscross operation for e-Invoice are: one is get IRN details, other is cancel IRN. Next one is get IRN details by document details, that is by passing the document type, the document number and the year, or to generate the e-Waybill by IRN, or to get the e-Waybill details by IRN. So these 5 APIs can be used for the crisscross operation. And we have introduced a new error code for this requirement, that is 3098, the description of which is invalid IRP code. And all the details like where how you have to put the IRP in the header parameter, etc. They are available in the e-Invoice API developer portal, that is einv-api-sandbox.nic.in. Now coming to the second instance of e-Waybill system. So the e-Waybill 2 portal provides availability of e-Waybill services. This system runs in parallel with the e-Waybill system. But with the critical functionalities. The taxpayers and logistic operators can use the existing username and password created and used in the e-Waybill system. So I'm talking about these features which are common for web as well as API. Subsequently, we'll look specifically at the API related requirements. This portal is also integrated with additional e-Invoice portal. Earlier, though we had 2 e-Invoice portals, we had only one e-Waybill system. Now we have 2 e-Invoice portals as well as 2 e-Waybill portals, so that like there is a redundancy in both the systems. The e-Waybills can be generated and updated on the e-Waybill 2 portal independently. Eventually, e-Waybill 1 and e-Waybill 2 systems will be seamlessly integrated. Right now, we are providing the critical services and we are providing the crisscross operation for few of the functionalities. Subsequently, all the features will be made seamlessly integrated with both the systems. So for the crisscross operation with respect to the e-Waybill, we have already seen in the e-Invoice, there are 5 APIs that you can use for crisscross operations. But in case of e-Waybill, the crisscross operation is possible between the e-Waybill 1 portal and e-Waybill 2 portal for these following APIs, that is for get e-Waybill and part B updation. But otherwise at e-Waybill 2, you have 5 APIs enabled as of now, that is generation of e-Waybill, update vehicle details, update transporter details of the e-Waybills which are generated at e-Waybill 2, get e-Waybill, or cancel the e-Waybill that are generated at e-Waybill 2. So at the e-Waybill 2 system as a standalone system, you can do these 5 operations, that is generation, part B updation, updation of part B, get e-Waybill and cancel e-Waybill. But for the crisscross operations, it is possible only for get e-Waybill and part B updation. That is, if e-Waybill is generated in e-Waybill 1 system, you can get it from the e-Waybill 2 system in case there is any problem with the e-Waybill system. Similarly, part B operations you can do at the other portal irrespective of where it is generated. But other operations are not yet available for the crisscross operation. So at e-Waybill 1 system, one can access the services, that is get e-Waybill, part B updation of the other system by accessing the other URL. So these are the additional error codes that have been introduced to handle this particular crisscross operations. These are available at the e-Waybill API developer portal, docs.ewaybilljst.go.in/API docs. So we have just tried to put the frequently asked questions based on our interaction with the users so far, which of course I have already explained, but we have put them again in the question answer format so that it will be easily understood. So the question here is whether same credentials and token work to access the e-Invoice 1, e-Waybill 1, e-Invoice 2 and e-Waybill 2. Yes, the credentials are same for getting the token from any of these portals. And also having got the token, you can use the same token to access any of the other 3 API systems. So while using the crisscross operation in e-Invoice, what is the indication that the user wants to work on IRN generated on the other instance? Now, the question that usually being asked is, like, the user would have hit e-Invoice 1 and generated some IRNs, would have hit e-Invoice 2 at some other point of time and generated some other invoices. And subsequently, he wants to do the crisscross operation, like whatever IRNs he has generated in one, he wants to operate on them in the other instance. For that, he has to indicate that where the IRN was generated. So where this has to be indicated? This has to be indicated in the IRP parameter, which is introduced in the request header. So in the request header, you have to indicate where actually the IRN was generated. that is whether at e-Invoice 1 or e-Invoice 2. So in case the value is not passed for this IRP, it's not a mandatory field. If IRP field itself is not indicated or the value is not passed in the IRP header, then the operations can happen only on the URL which you are calling. Like in the absence of IRP parameter, if you have generated IRN in e-Invoice 1, you can do the other operation like get IRN only on e-Invoice 1. So if you hit e-Invoice 2 parameter without IRP, e-Invoice 2 URL without IRP parameter, then it will say the IRN is not found. This is a critical parameter through which we will come to know which system to access to get this IRN details. And you as a user, how do you identify whether the IRN was generated in 1 or 2? You might have generated at some point of time. Subsequently, since you are supposed to pass the IRP value as NIC 1 or NIC 2, you also should be aware that where the IRN was generated. And as you are aware, IRN is actually a certain 4 parameters, that is supplier GSTN, document number, document type, etc. So with that, we will not be able to identify whether it was generated in e-Invoice 1 or e-Invoice 2. So what we have done is we have used the first digit of the acknowledgement number. As you are aware, whenever a IRN is generated, we are also generating one unique number called as acknowledgement number, which is a 15-digit number. So in that 15-digit number, the first digit indicates whether the IRN was generated in the e-Invoice 1 portal or e-Invoice 2 portal. So making use of this, you can build a system to pass the IRP value as NIC 1 or NIC 2. And similarly for the e-Waybill, though it is not required for you to handle this, just for information, we are indicating here that the third digit in the e-Waybill number indicates whether the e-Waybill was generated in e-Waybill 1 system or the e-Waybill 2 system. If the third digit is having values between 1 to 7, then it is generated in e-Waybill 1 system. And if it is having values between 8 and 9 or 8 and 9, then it is generated at e-Waybill 2 portal or e-Waybill 2 API system. The next is how to test the interoperability and the second instance functionalities. So we have made provision for 4 new API sandboxes, 2 for e-Waybill and 2 for e-Invoice. And you can log in into einv-api-sandbox.nic.in, where you can get the endpoints of each one of these 4 API sandbox systems. So with which you can develop your systems, you can carry out the trial and errors of assuming one system has gone down and you want to and you have generated some e-Waybill on one portal and you want to update the part B in the second portal. So these kind of all operations you can try out on these 4 API sandbox instances, which we have recently introduced for the purpose of testing these crisscross operations. So one has to log in into this API sandbox URL, and then only you'll be able to get the sandbox endpoints. Only few APIs are mentioned in the crisscross operations. What about the remaining services? Right now, critical services are handled so that the businesses can continue without any interruptions. Subsequently, we'll be adding the other features. Whether separate whitelisting of IP address is required to access e-Invoice 2 and e-Waybill 2? No. Whatever you have already whitelisted at earlier, the same things we have applied at the other side also. So there is no additional requirement of whitelisting the IPs again, which we have taken internally ourselves. Still, you face any problem, you can send a mail to our support mail ID. We'll look into that. So whether there are new public keys for e-Invoice 2 and e-Waybill? No, we are using the same public keys that were used earlier. The e-Invoice 1 public key that was used for encrypting the credentials, the same thing can be used for e-Invoice 2. And similarly, the public key that was used on e-Waybill 1 is used for e-Waybill 2 portal. But in the sandbox, it is the same public key. It's a common public key for all the core API systems. So I have finished my part. If there are any questions that have not yet been answered in this, those can be typed in the chat box. We'll take up those questions.
Suresh, for the detailed presentation. Let's see if we have some questions in the chat box.
We'll take up the questions that are there in the chat box. E-Invoice is getting error showing e-Invoice token not available. So the details are required. You can send a mail to the support mail ID. We will put the support mail ID in the chat box. The support.einv.api@gov.in. So you can send the detailed issues with respect to whatever e-Invoice token not available issue has been raised. Please give the API download. Please give API to download e-Invoice and e-Waybill as PDF. This is not the purpose of API integration. API integration is for the data. We require data to generate the e-Invoices or e-Waybills as required for your purpose. So we are giving the data, you can generate the PDF the way you want. Is the video available to share for? No, like this is already streamed on YouTube. We will paste the YouTube URL in the chat box. I think Tosif can paste the email support mail ID and YouTube link in the chat box. So presentation, we'll see if you can share it mail. Otherwise, the recording is already there where we have covered this presentation. You can have a look at the YouTube video link. Please mail the part to download the presentation. Can I get direct API production? Can I get the direct API in production environment is the question. So since you are participating in this particular session, you must be directly having the direct API access to NIC applications. First, we request you to test all these things in the sandbox, and then you can go on to the production. Eligibility for e-Waybill API. If you are generating more than 10,000 transactions per month, for such taxpayers, we have been giving the direct access to the e-Waybill APIs. And if your turnover is more than 100 crores, we are giving direct API access to the e-Waybill system. So they are the criteria for giving the direct API access from the NIC system. We are facing problem post the switchover, unable to hit both e-Invoice 1 and e-Invoice 2. Tried to reach out to support, no solution yet. Have you first tested all these features in the sandbox? Whether you are facing this issue in the sandbox or production is not very clear. So you can first test all these features in the sandbox. Any issues that you are facing, please share the details to the support email ID. If there is part B functionality allowed, why we have error codes 448, part B cannot be updated as this e-Waybill part A is generated in NIC1. Yeah. So here, one thing to note is the question I will read first completely. If there is part B crisscross functionality allowed, why we have error codes 448? Part B cannot be updated as this e-Waybill part A is generated in NIC1. 449 part B cannot be updated as this e-Waybill part A is generated in e-Invoice 2. Here, actually part B can be updated in the other instance only if the complete e-Waybill is earlier instance. So if you have generated only part A, and the part A we don't treat it as a e-Waybill, it's only a draft kind of a thing. It's only a part A slip. So that cannot be updated through the crisscross operation at the other instance. You should have completely generated an e-Waybill including the part B updation at one instance. Then only you will be able to update the subsequent part B updations at the other instance. Hope it is clear. Insert third-party API. I don't know what is meant by that. We are facing issues while generating e-Waybill from e-Invoice 2 portal. So I don't know like whether it is on Sandbox or production. You please write the details to the support mail ID with the details what exactly you are facing the problem. What is the rationale behind leaving the URL change to taxpayer rather than having a single URL at NIC with load balancer? Load balancer is already there in the respective instances behind which there are multiple servers which are catering to your requirement. But the purpose here is to have two independent systems. So in case there is problem with the first instance, we want the users to use the second instance and we don't want this common point of failure for these two instances. That's why we have provided two separate URLs so that independent of the nature of the first instance, one can go to the other instance and still carry out the critical operations. Need to update the transporter details twice. There is no need to update the transporter details twice. So didn't get exactly what is the question. We'll do one thing. I think we can just explain this in the chat box subsequently as we go down. We'll take it up again. Eligibility for e-Waybill API I already have explained. It is more than 10,000 transactions per month per GSTI. How can we log into API testing server? Any username, password. These are already available with you. Since you have already integrated with API directly with NIC, you would have already tested the APIs in the sandbox. Then only we would have given you the production access. So please check up with your colleagues within your organization and get the credentials for your organization. But they should be already there with your organization. We are facing issues while generating e-Waybill from e-Invoice 2 portal and need to update the transporter details twice. There is no need to update the transport. Whatever transporter details are updated in the first instance, they are automatically carried forward to the other instance. So there is no need to update the transporter details again. For now, we are able to log in into e-Invoice 2, but there is no data available. If we have We are facing issues while generating e-Waybill from e-Invoice 2 portal. We need to update that is done. Now we are able to log in to e-Invoice 2, but there is no data available. It is blank. The further details are required. May please send it by mail. How to know if the main portal is non-operational because of technical reasons. So this is a little tricky thing to say. This is the way to find out the e-Invoice 1 portal is down or e-Waybill 1 portal is down, because the failure can be for multiple reasons. One could be the URL itself is not accessible. URL is accessible, but you are not able to perform your functionalities due to some other technical issues, or there may be issues due to the data itself. You may be getting some other errors like 5002 or 5001. So this is very difficult to say in a single line that like this is a way to know that the other portal is down. But whenever the other portal is not accessible, as you are aware, there are heartbeat APIs. So using the heartbeat APIs, you can get to know at least you are able to reach the server or not. So if you are to reach the server, obviously you have to switch to the other instance. But if you are able to reach the server, that is only indication that you are able to reach the server, but it doesn't guarantee that there are no other technical issues like maybe some database related issues or some other caching issues or something like that. So if you continuously get those kind of errors like maybe 5001 or 5002 or 404 or 503, then that is the time to switch over to the other instance. Whitelist IP cannot be able to find due to GSP provider. Now, actually, we were expecting the taxpayers who are directly integrated through our APIs. So you will not be coming through the GSP in ideal situation. The GSPs would have whitelisted their IPs. That is how they are accessing our APIs. So if you are coming through the GSPs, then you don't have to bother about whether the GSPs have whitelisted their IPs with us or not. You have to look after only your connectivity to the GSP. The connectivity from GSP to NIC is taken care by the GSP and us. But if you are directly connecting to NIC, if you have been already using the e-Invoice 1 and e-Waybill 1, then you don't have to do any additional whitelisting at our side because you will be you are already allowed to access the e-Waybill 2 and e-Invoice 2 API systems. Nowadays, e-Invoice 1 not at all opening. So that cannot be true because every day more than 80 lakh to 90 lakh IRNs are getting generated. So please check your local network, whether you are hitting through the same IPs that were whitelisted, etc. So nowadays, e-Invoice 1 not at all opening is not a right thing. It's been working without any issues. We are not get all invoices in single PDF, that is few invoices missing in single file while manual download. Sunita, can you take?
Need to check this. You can send us the details on the support and we will look into this.
Sir, can we get production and sandbox e-Waybill link along with all API URL? We use the document to test but not worked. Please log in into einv-api sandbox.nic.in. Once you have logged in into this, you have all the endpoints for all the available APIs. So we have already given the support mail ID in the chat box, support.einv.api@gov.in. So wherever I was mentioning further details are required, so please provide all the required documents with respect to NIC's API. Usually what happens, if you are hitting your own some intermediate APIs, you will be sharing us the details of those APIs, the URLs or the credentials or payloads. That will not be helpful for us to solve your problem. You have to give the details pertaining to NIC's URL, NIC's payloads, NIC's responses. Then we'll be able to look into the issues and we'll be able to find a resolution for those issues. Support mail ID is already shared. Currently, these alternative portals are available. Yes, they are available. We request you to first complete the testing on the sandbox and then come to the production. So two things changes on our API side. One is e-Invoice API header pass key IRP and value maybe NIC1 and NIC2, correct? If getting error 3098 error, then we change NIC1 and NIC2. No, 3098 is only checking whether you are passing NIC1 or NIC2. It is not checking whether you have correctly passed NIC1 or NIC2. That is the purpose of this additional parameter, to know from you whether you had generated in 1 or generated in 2. So that will not give you error 3098. If you are passing something other than NIC1 or NIC2, then only 3098 will be given as a response. But the system cannot say that NIC1 was correct or NIC2 was correct. I hope you got what I'm saying. Can you mail if main portal is not available? That is quite difficult for us to send a mail immediately if it goes down. That's the reason we have already educated you with the alternate URLs, and we are asking you to prepare the APIs, etc. So if you find you are not able to access one system, you can switch over to the second one and continue working. Send the details to email, but not able to find the list of IP. If you are talking about your whitelisted IPs, we expect you to maintain the record of the IPs that you have whitelisted with us. And whenever you are asking for change of IPs to be whitelisted, you have to mention the past IPs which have been already whitelisted. Then only we will change the new IPs. The organization is supposed to maintain the record of the IPs that have been whitelisted in the past and which are currently effective, and subsequently for change of any IPs, the past will be maintained and then only will be changing the whitelisted IP. How we know which server is not working? How we whitelist our IP address in case of ISP change addition? So if you have to change your whitelisted IPs, you have to send a mail to the support mail ID, support.einv.api@gov.in from the GSTN authorized signatories mail ID. And also you have to mention the currently whitelisted IPs, and you have to mention the IPs that need to be whitelisted now. And please note, only up to 4 Indian IPs only can be whitelisted. And the same IPs have to be whitelisted at both the first instance as well as at the second instance. It is not that you have to whitelist some 4 IPs at e-Invoice 1 and some other 4 IPs at e-Invoice 2. That is not going to happen. Whatever IPs are whitelisted at e-Invoice 1, the same 4 IPs are whitelisted at e-Invoice 2. Tosif, you can have you posted the YouTube link in the chat box? So there are some questions on the sharing of this video links. So
yes, sir, I did.
Okay. So they are already pasted there. Fine. Though this question be related, but one problem that is being faced from time to time is whitelisting of public IP address. It is very difficult to get update deletion of new old public addresses on the IRN portal. This ultimately affect sales activity, requesting you to please look into it and streamline the support systems, email ID, contact number, etc. The whitelisting of these IPs is mainly for the security purpose, and this cannot change very frequently, right? So whenever you are changing the ISPs or whenever you are shifting your servers from one data center to the other data center, there may be situations where you may have to change the IPs. There is a clear-cut procedure that is being followed. First time whitelisting will happen through the portal. Subsequent change of IPs will happen through the mail to the support.einv.api@go.in. And the condition is the mail has to come from only the authorized signatory of that particular GSTIN. And also you have to mention the old IP that needs to be removed and the new IP that needs to be added. And the IPs have to be Indian IPs only, and there can't be more than 4 IPs whitelisted. So if all these criteria are followed, there is no hassles in getting the IP whitelisting changed. We have been doing it regularly for all the taxpayers whenever there is a need. So please follow these things, then there won't be any issues in changing the whitelisting of the IP. I mean, changing of the IPs that are whitelisted. Are you changing the number length? No, the acknowledgement number length remains the same. Only the first digit we have manipulated for 1 and 2 to indicate it is generated in 1 or it is generated in 2. We have tested the YouTube link. Subsequently, if you want to look at this particular video, you can have a look at it leisurely. Request to provide e-Invoice details for the month instead of allowing only for 2 days. This is the policy decision as per the guidance of GSTN. So this is being provided only for as per whatever directions we have received. We are having turnover more than 100 crores. Still, we are not able to access e-Waybill API. If you are having your turnover more than 100 crores, if you want to directly integrate with the API, please send a mail to the support.einv.api@go.in. Automatically, you will not be given the access. First of all, we will check your eligibility. If you are eligible to get a direct API access, first of all, you have to test all the sandbox, all the APIs in the sandbox. There is a format available in the portal. You have to fill that format and tell us you have tested all the positive and failure cases, sufficient number of cases we have also mentioned in the format. Once you have tested all the APIs and submit the test report, then only we will be giving you the access to the production. So you will not be getting automatic API direct access since you have crossed 100 crore. How to log on into Sandbox? You please check up who was handling the API integration earlier in your application and get the credentials from them. We have tested in Sandbox both e-Invoice 1 and e-Invoice 2. Can we use production get API on e-Invoice 1 and 2? Yes, you can do. Can we use client ID and client secret of one PAN number GSTINs for other PAN number GSTINs for creating API users? That is the answer. Sunita, can you take this, like where we have given for extending their access to the other people?
Yeah, we
Shared
have given
client.
this particular facility for the taxpayers who are directly connecting to the APIs. That is a direct access who are having. Those taxpayers can share their client ID and client secret to their other integrators that who are using their own system and having a different PAN. So they can basically, in some of the organizations, the taxpayers are having some subsidiary taxpayers who are using their system, the IT system. So in that case, this was considered, and hence we have given an option in the portal itself to share their client ID and client secret, provided they first request to you for the access, and then you will approve it, and only then they will get access to this client ID and client secret. And you have to manually give your client ID and client secret to the taxpayers. So this is available in the portal. I hope it is clear.
Yeah. Thank you, Sunita. We are facing issues for the locations, those towns within 200 kilometers, as e-Waybill system is allowed only one day, 24 hours. If we raising the e-Waybill on Saturday, working day, and the validity is going to over next day, that is Sunday, suggest that at least extend validity at least 48 hours. So this is the government policy decision where the validity is for 200 kilometers per day. But if you are actually moving the goods on Monday, generate the e-Waybill on Saturday. So just before, I mean, if it is feasible, you can generate the e-Waybill just before the goods start moving. Otherwise, there is also a facility for extending the e-Waybill if there is any genuine reason for extending it. So extension of e-Waybill is possible 8 hours before or 8 hours after the validity of the e-Waybill. So that can be utilized. So either way, you will be able to come out of this particular issue. Sunita, you want to add anything to that?
No, Suresh. What you said is okay. Right. You can continue.
Yeah, okay, thanks. So per GSTN, how many IPs can be whitelisted? It is for the PAN, not for the GSTN. It is for 4 Indian IPs per PAN. Can we get e-Waybill without IRN through API? Through the API system, you will be able to get the e-Waybill details through the API, not through the e-Invoice APIs. Also getting 404 for API. It is for which instance it is not clear here. We are facing issues while generating e-Waybill from e-Invoice to portal and need to update the transporter details twice. During first update, the e-Waybill does not get assigned to the transporter. Due to this, we have to update the e-Waybill again with the transporter details. We were not facing this issue when we were accessing e-Invoice 1 portal. Please provide the IRN details to the email. We will look into that issue. Ideally, it should not be there, but in case you are facing such issues, we need to investigate. Please provide the IRN details, etc. We will look into that. At least the currently whitelisted IP addresses should be listed on the portal after login to it. This is especially because helpful to verify when there is no response from the e-Invoice support. We expect the maintenance of the IP address that are being whitelisted by the organization itself. It is a very critical point. You should not depend on us. We should not ask us like what IPs I have whitelisted with you. Because when you are changing the ISPs, when you are changing the data center, you don't get the old IPs removed from the whitelisting. You get the new IPs whitelisted. So the earlier IPs remain open for the access to the API. So this is a very critical thing. That's the reason we want some responsible person, that is authorized signatory in the organization, has to maintain the list of IPs that have been already whitelisted, and any IPs have been changed, to keep track of what IPs have been given for change, what have been given for delete, etc. have to be maintained by the organization itself. It's a very critical information with respect to. This change will need prompt technical support. Our experience with NIC support team is that calls get closed without giving a solution or giving some standard answer which doesn't resolve the issue. Hope NIC technical team is geared up for the upcoming challenges. There have been more than 70 to 80% of the operations happening through the API, and people are using this system very smoothly. But the tickets that are being raised are actually raised on the GST common portal, and the L1 is looked after by GSTN, then L2 comes to NIC, and then L3 comes to the technical team at NIC. So if the tickets have reached us, we have definitely resolved all the issues. So that is how the tickets flow. So that's what I just to bring it to your notice. There was some issue with URL invoice 1, and we have changed from invoice 1 to invoice 2. Has the issue resolved in invoice 1? So we have not faced any issues at invoice 1 recently. I don't know when this issue was faced and when it had switched over to invoice 2, but you have to check both the instance and like you have to, if invoice 1 is working, then you will have to shift back to invoice 1. But recently there has no such thing has happened where invoice 1 has gone down. Is it possible to give IPs for whitelisting more than 2? Yes, we are allowing up to 4. Unable to hear, but our people are able to hear me. Can we cancel e-Waybill from e-Invoice 2 portal which was generated on e-Invoice 1? Cancellation of e-Waybill on the other side is not possible. Only part B updation is possible at the other portal, not cancellation of e-Waybill. Cancellation of IRN is possible. If you want to change the static IP for e-Invoice, then what is the procedure? I have already explained. Requesting share screen. I'm not sharing anything. I'm reading the questions from the chat box. Any chance of generation of token if the e-Invoice 1 is down to create IRN in e-Invoice 2? Is this possible? The question is not very clearly understood, but if you have generated the token from any one of the 4 API systems, you can use it to access the APIs of any other 3 API systems. If any limitations of IP is to be whitelisted, up to 4 Indian IPs are allowed. Could you please let us know from where you can get the status code details for the API's response if any additional header required? If you are asking about the changes to be done in the APIs, they are already put up in the API developer portal, both respective portals for e-Waybill and e-Invoice. One can visit einv-api-sandbox.nic.in for e-Invoice API development related issues, and docs.ewaybill.gst.go.in/API docs for the e-Waybill API related things. So when a mail is sent to support.api.einv.api.gov.in, you are getting a response saying we are no longer using the email ID. As per the guidelines from GSTN, where they want to track all the issues, we have continued receiving the support related mails except for the test report or whitelisting request, etc. in the direct email. You are supposed to go to the GSTN grievance portal, raise the ticket there so that the tickets can be tracked by GSTN also. So that's the reason we are not receiving directly the technical things. But if you raise a ticket there and send a reference to this mail ID, we will look into that. Sandbox, how long will be live? Sandbox is already live and it will be live all. Can you please list out possible cases when we transfer an API call from e-Invoice 1 to e-Invoice 2? If you have generated an e-Waybill and complete e-Waybill at e-Waybill 1 and subsequently you are not able to access e-Waybill 1 portal for some reason, then the e-Waybills that have been already generated in are automatically copied in the next instance to e-Waybill 2, and subsequently you can update the part B and continue moving the goods. So this is one scenario. Similarly, IRN is generated in e-Invoice 1 portal, and since you are aware, IRN can be cancelled within 24 hours, but you are not able to access e-Invoice 1 portal and you have to cancel the IRN within 24 hours, then you can go to e-Invoice 2 portal and cancel the IRN. So these are some scenarios which we can I can just mention where the interoperable features will help you to run the business smoothly. We have noticed that for the IP whitelist and backlist, support team is allowing only one request within 6 months, which is sometimes cause of issue in organization. So as I was mentioning, this is a critical security issue. You will not be changing your ISP or you will not be changing your data center so frequently. And when you are giving the IPs for whitelisting, please check properly whether you are giving the correct IPs. So with that, there should not be any issues. However, within 6 months, if something is very critical, we do allow changing of the IPs, provided you have followed all these procedures, that is sending through the authorized signatory, mentioning the old IP, etc. And there should be Indian IPs. So if all these criteria are followed, then we will change it. Why we are discouraging frequent change of IP whitelisting is like it has to follow a procedure through multiple levels of workflow, which requires approvals from multiple levels, which requires entry and deletion of certain parameters in certain critical systems. So this has to be taken very seriously, and if there is no inevitable situation, then we are changing those IPs. But it can't be too frequent, like every week or every month somebody wants to change the IPs. That will not be the case usually. So I have already mentioned about this. Can we get a list of error codes which we will get when the e-Invoice 1 is down or vice versa? So there are different types of scenarios due to which ultimately you will not be able to use that particular instance. So it could be you are not able to hit the endpoint, you are not getting 404 or 503 or 5002. So these are some of the scenarios like which I can just mention here. Any of these, if you get, like it's the time to switch over to the other one. How can I get which IP is whitelisted? I have mentioned you have to maintain the list of IPs that you have whitelisted with us. I have already mentioned quite some time back. Can we get production and sandbox e-Waybill link along with all API URL. Same question I had answered quite a few minutes back. You log in into einv-api-sandbox.nic.in and get the links. We are facing issues while generating e-Waybill from e-Invoice 2 portal and need to update the transported details. This you send the mail directly to the support mail ID. We will look into that IRN. Sunita, next question is user to generate e-Waybill after 2 days of e-invoicing. Main user can please change the same, as there may be 3 to 4 days delay in case of export cases. Sunita, can you take this?
Yeah, every sub-user has a, roles like available, whether he's able to generate the e-Waybill or whether he can generate the IRN, etc. Just see whether all the necessary permissions are provided to the sub-user. But he should be able to generate the e-Waybill along with the main user also. Check the permissions.
Can we get main user generated IRN details in all sub-user IDs?
No, not all. A main user will get for all the sub-users, but the sub-users will not get. And again, he should be having access to these reports. So just ensure that whether he has the access to these reports.
I think we have finished the questions, Sunita. Can we
Okay,
conclude?
I will just check once. Okay, Suresh, thank you for taking up all the questions and giving all the answers. So I thank all the participants for joining this session. And in case you have any specific issue, you may send us mail on the support ID so that we will be able to resolve it. So once again, thank all the participants for joining this session. Thank you.